I've been noticing some odd pairings that go from band to band, like sort of musical genealogy. Once in a while, a group will break up and two of the members will stick together and start something new and go on to that or many other things. Paul Rodgers and Simon Kirke were in Free and went on to form Bad Company. Rod Stewart and Rod Wood were in the Jeff Beck group, and then they continued on into the Faces. Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs were in the Buggles, ended up joining Yes, and doing some production too. Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, they did Yardbird stuff together even before Led Zeppelin. They worked on Sunshine Superman and Hurdy Gurdy Man by Donovan. Lots of Herman's Hermits, Kinks, even Who records, and most impressive to me is Goldfinger. They were both on that hit song for the James Bond movie. Then, of course, then Led Zeppelin, Vanilla Fudge, Cactus, and BBA kind of had some continuing things happening. In fact, 3 members at one point, but Carmen Appice, the drummer, Tim Bogert, the bass player, were in all 3, Vanilla Fudge, Cactus, and Beck Bogert Appice. Jim McCarty was in the last 2. He was the guitarist in Cactus and... No, I guess he wasn't in the last one. Okay. But he was in Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. And then, of course, there's Crosby Nash. They had several great hit albums. And they were also in CSN and CSNY. Not a big stretch. Dave Crosby, though, filled in for Neil Young in Buffalo Springfield at Monterey Pop. Ends up playing with Stephen Stills in CSN and CSNY. Neil was in Buffalo Springfield, then Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young with Stills and the Stills Young Band. And even Neil and Graham Nash from CSNY had a duetting single in about 1972, I think, called War Song. It's on Neil Young's archives. More Buffalo Springfield, Richie Furay and Jim Messina, who replaced Bruce Palmer on bass and was their producer, formed Poco. So those 2 guys continued. Buckingham Nicks started out as a duo, joined Fleetwood Mac. And then in Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie played together and then had a duet album. I think it was the last album she recorded before she died. And then the big one, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker were in Blues Incorporated and the Graham Bond Organization, went to Cream with Eric Clapton, and then Eric Clapton and Baker went to Blind Faith, where Steve Winwood and Rick Gretsch were in the band. Well, Winwood and Gretsch reformed Traffic after Blind Faith. Whew. Then there's Jeff Baxter and Michael McDonald. They were both in Steely Dan, and then together they went to the Doobie Brothers. And John Mayall was the proving ground for a lot of pairings. In fact, 3 here, Peter Green, John McVie, and Mick Fleetwood worked together with Mayall, and then left and formed Fleetwood Mac. So partnerships can work out. Try one. I'm kind of a fan of musical crossovers where musicians play on recordings and in concert with bands other than their own that they're known for. That didn't used to happen much in the early 60s, but then Eric Clapton played the solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps on the Beatles' White Album, and that kind of opened the floodgates, and a lot of people started doing that, which was kind of interesting to see the different chemistries. And Rick Wakeman was kind of the king of that too, besides playing in Yes off and on for a million years. He played and wrote the piano for Cat Stevens' Morning is Broken. That's him doing all the synthesizers and sound effects on David Bowie's Space Oddity. Prince played all the synthesizer on Stevie Nicks' song Stand Back. Mick Ronson, who was with Bowie, also played on John Mellencamp's Jack and Diane, that little acoustic guitar part. Very complicated. Anyway, he also played on Lou Reed's Perfect Day. That's kind of a switch. Alan White, speaking of Yes, he played on Give Peace a Chance, Instant Karma, Happy Christmas, War is Over, a whole bunch of John Lennon material before joining Yes for exactly 50 years. So he got around. That's a great resume. Jack Cassidy, the great bassist of the Jefferson Airplane, that's him playing the bass on Jimi Hendrix's Voodoo Child's Slight Return from the Electric Ladyland album. He just happened to be in the studio, and Noel Redding wasn't. Ha! Good chance. Flea from the Chili Peppers played on Alanis Morissette's You Ought to Know, and Taylor Hawkins was her drummer at the time, so there's a combo. Brian Jones from the Stones played sax on You Know My Name, Look Up the Number by the Beatles, and was also on background vocals of Yellow Submarine, but then again, who wasn't? Speaking of background vocals, Lulu was on Give Peace a Chance. She happened to come to John's hotel room just as they were making the record, and there she was. Come on in. And Money for Nothing, the big Dire Straits hit, that's Sting doing, I want my MTV. I guess he wants his MTV. Perfect blend. Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones did a lot of work together before Led Zeppelin. They were on Sunshine Superman and Hurdy-Gurdy Man by Donovan, Happenings 10 Years Time Ago by the Yardbirds. I thought the bass sounded extra good on that one. And to my big surprise, they were both on the hit song Goldfinger from the James Bond movie. So they've been together a while. Dave Mason played the killer acoustic guitar on All Along the Watchtower that Hendrix did. That's Stevie Wonder on harmonica with Sting's song Brand New Day. Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney sang on You're So Vain with Carly Simon. And Little Feat and the Doobie Brothers were her backup band on at least 3 albums. That's some good stuff to listen to, or all her 70s stuff. Robert Fripp, King Crimson, to Heroes by David Bowie. Thomas Dolby, I just found this out. The whole Def Leppard Pyromania album with 4 hit singles, as well as Foreigner's I've Been Waiting for a Girl Like You, all big hits in 1982. That's Thomas Dolby playing all the synthesizers. Eric Clapton did the While My Guitar Gently Weeps, like I said. And then there was a song called Photographed by, I guess it was 10,000 Maniacs. Anyway, it was Natalie Merchant with Michael Stipe from R.E.M. I think it was just a B-side, but it's one of my favorites. Stevie Ray Vaughan is on David Bowie's Let's Dance. Bowie pick-synced him on the video. That was annoying, but that's Stevie Ray playing. Jerry Garcia plays all that good steel guitar on Teach Your Children, Crosby, Stills, and Nash & Young. And Steve Lukather, the first I knew of him, even before I knew really of Toto, was I Love L.A., the Randy Newman song. And he's even in the video playing the lead solo from a convertible going through Hollywood. So anyway, I like when musicians mix it up and hang out and do things together. And they do now.